Hello, welcome to this video looking at the developmental psychology topic for the AQA GCSE psychology course. This video is going to be on Dweck's theory of learning and comes after the earlier content of looking at brain development to begin with and then moving on to Piaget's theories, and so this kind of comes in the middle there before finally finishing with looking at learning styles and criticisms of them. So Dweck's theory is called mindset, and so what Dweck was saying is that the mindset, the thinking patterns that people go into, particularly learning, so learning, it could be academic, it could be sport, could be music, could be in any area, the mindset that someone goes into trying to learn with can have a big impact on the outcomes and how successful they are in doing that. So she came up with an idea at looking at maybe trying to change those mindsets and trying to develop what might be seen as a more healthy mindset to allow learning to take place rather than just thinking that actually we can't learn and we can't do anything better and can't improve ourselves. So Dweck's mindset theory suggested that there were two different mindsets, either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. So what Dweck said is that if someone has a fixed mindset, what they believe is that they believe in ability, they believe in talent, they believe you're born with whatever you have. So whether that's a sporting ability or a musical ability or intelligence, IQ, or whatever you may call it when it comes to learning academically, that's kind of your set level and you're not going to get better than that. You're either good at football or rugby or singing or guitar or academics, or you're not, is what someone with a fixed mindset would believe. If you believe in that then obviously has an impact on how you would approach those things. So you would then go into maybe trying sports or music or academics, and if you had a fixed mindset, you'd say, well, what's the point in trying, because I'm never going to get better, these other people are better than I am, I'm never going to be able to compete, I've got this level and that's it. And so having a fixed mindset believes, the people that have a fixed mindset would believe that there's no point in putting effort into things. Things are set as they are. You're predetermined to be either good or bad at something, and that's about as far as you're going to get. On the other hand, people with a growth mindset believe actually you can improve and you can get better and you can always get better at something. So it doesn't matter what level you start at, whether that's in basketball or playing the cello. Actually, if you practice and put effort in, you're going to improve and get better and better. And so that would be what Dweck would call having a growth mindset. Hard work leads to better outcomes, more effort. You'd want to challenge yourself, you'd want to improve and go through the difficult times of finding stuff tough. You would then get better at it. What this doesn't mean, what Dweck wasn't saying, is that everyone could be, an NBA player. If you look at the average height of an NBA player, they're probably 6 foot something or other, if not 7 foot. And obviously, if you're a lot smaller, you're going to struggle at that. But what it means is for you can improve for you. So you can get better at basketball, whatever level you're at the moment, you can improve that and get better. That was sometimes criticism labelled at Dweck as saying, okay, well, everyone's going to be an absolute genius then, everyone can be a professional sportsman. Well, she wasn't necessarily saying that, but what she was saying is that for you can always get better and improve on where you were, and that's what having a growth mindset would mean. Depending on your mindset would then have an impact on how you would approach failure. So everyone's going to fail. It happens. Sorry to break it to you. You will fail. I don't mean that as negative. I would suggest I think I've got a bit of a growth mindset. So actually, failure is a good thing, because what it means is that you've tried something, it hasn't worked, so you've learned something, so you can try something else, you can try again. So yeah, people with growth mindsets would suggest failure is a good thing. It helps you to improve. It helps you to see what doesn't work so that you can then change what you do next time and get better at it. Someone with a fixed mindset would suggest that actually failure is a bad thing. It means you're no good at something. It means that it backs up your idea that you've either got it or you haven't. And so someone with a growth mindset, if they fail at something, be that in sports, be that in a test, in maths, for example, they would just mean, oh, that means I'm no good at that. I'm not ever going to get better. Whereas someone with a growth mindset would say, okay, well, I didn't do very well this time. How can I improve on that next time? What can I learn from this? How can I do better? And so the mindset theory has a big impact on failure, or vice versa. Failure has a big impact on mindset theory, and it can allow us to how someone approaches failure may suggest which mindset they have, and actually trying to change someone's mindset, trying to get people to see actually if you don't do so well in something, it doesn't mean that you're not good at it. It just means that you're going to need to try a bit harder and try something new. So whether that's a test on psychology, for example, developmental psychology, and you don't do very well, okay, that's fine, but what are you going to do about it? What will you do next time? And there's actually lots of real good application here, and that will come up in the evaluation. So Michael Jordan, famous basketballer, said I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. So that's one of the quotes from him, because he's saying that he learns each time he fails and then improves on that, and so that's why he gets better and better. And there's another famous quote that says you either win or you learn. So you don't win or fail, you win or you learn something how to improve next time. So failure is a big part of the mindset theory. Something also worth noting is that it's thought that mindsets are a continuum. So what we're not saying is you're either fixed or you're growth. It suggests that actually in some situations you might be fixed, whereas others you might be growth. So it might be that you've got a growth mindset when it does come to your swimming, because you enjoy your swimming, but for your academics you think that you're not very good at it. So you can have different sorts of mindsets in different sorts of situations, different domains, as it's known. The key there would be to try to apply what you use in your growth mindset to your fixed mindset area. There's also an idea that actually, you're not either just fixed or just growth. You can be a little bit fixed, a little bit growth, hugely fixed or hugely growth in different areas. So Dweck would suggest that you can change your mindsets and working on it, and being aware of your mindsets, being aware of your thinking patterns, trying to force yourself to think a bit more growth in different situations can actually improve your mindsets, and then obviously improve your approach to failure, and therefore improve your outcomes. So this is how it's applied to development and learning. So before we look at the link between Dweck and praise and self-efficacy, which we'll do in a moment, we can have a look at evaluating Dweck's theory on its own. So looking at Dweck's theory, it's been quite influential. So I'm sure some of you sitting here listening to this may have heard of mindsets already. Lots of schools have kind of taken it on board. And so that's a real positive, and we'll look at the application in a second. One big thing to note is that it was very research based. So the first strength here is that there is research that supports the idea that someone with a growth mindset should have better outcomes academically, and that has been found. So a point is growth mindset has been found to lead to better grades, better outcomes. So researcher Blackwell et al., group of researchers looked at a group of children aged between 12 and 13 and gave them instructions and gave them understanding of mindsets. So there was one group that were taught about mindsets. The other group were just taught about memory processes. Obviously, learning about memory processes can help you learn as well. But what was found in this bit of research is that those that were taught about mindsets did better in their outcomes than those that weren't taught about mindsets. So this suggests that mindsets can have a positive impact on development, on learning. And so it suggests that there is some efficacy there is some application, there's some validity in what Dweck's theories were saying, and this can be applied. Having said there is research support, which there is, and it can be applied, which it can. It's not all plain sailing. So what lots of educational institutions have found is, you can't just teach children about mindset and expect them to then have a growth mindset and all their grades are going to go up. That would be too easy. That hasn't happened. And you can also find that there is there can be negative effects. So what we're saying here is that we want people to have a growth mindset, which links to effort and putting effort in, and improved effort can improve outcomes. Well, actually, what you can find is, so one of the ways that you can improve effort is praising that effort. If you praise something, it's more likely to happen. We'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. But actually, that praise can lead to negative outcomes. So what you can sometimes find, that's the point, praise can lead to negative outcomes. is that actually if you praise too much, students will be doing things for the praise rather than actually doing it for motivation, doing it because they want to do it. So there has been research that has backed this up as well. So a bit of research done. They asked children to draw some pictures, and they then, one group, they praised all the way through. They said, well done for drawing the pictures. You've done really well here. Gave sweets, gave rewards, excellent. And the other group, they just said, okay, great. It's good that it's good. They didn't give them massive praise all the way through. They thanked them for their time and sent them on their merry way. They then got the same group of children back to then draw these pictures later on and said, right, we'd like you to draw some pictures. The group that had been praised said, well, we're not going to draw any pictures unless you give us praise again. Whereas the other group that hadn't had loads of praise were more happy to carry on. So actually what you can find is overpraising can have a negative impact on motivation. And so actually praise isn't always the best motivator. So it's not as maybe quite a straightforward a theory as it first looks. But kind of rounding it off, bit of a strength sandwich for Dweck's theory is that, well, it has been applied to lots and lots of different areas, and that's why you will have heard of it. So it can be applied to education, can be applied to areas such as sports and music and even relationships. So there's lots of applications to the growth mindset theory, to Dweck's mindset theory, and actually this idea of putting in effort, keeping going if things get tough, working through struggles, that's all really positive information, positive message, and can't be, it can't have a bad outcome. And so actually knowing that failure means further effort, that's a really good life skill. It's applicable in lots of different areas. And actually, as I've said before, if you can find an area in life where you do have a growth mindset and you can apply what you do there to other areas, then that can improve those other areas as well. So that's another strength. Okay, so after looking at those evaluations then, those AO3 points for Dweck's theory in particular, let's spend a little bit of time looking at praise and self-efficacy on its own. So this would be more AO1 marks, potentially more AO1 information. So what is praise? So praise is, and actually if you look into more detail at other areas of psychology, learning theory, for example, positive reinforcement is a big thing, and praise would come under that, having a reward. So yeah, praise acts as a reward. So the basic idea is that when we're rewarded for something, we're more likely to continue that behavior in the future, and if we're punished for something, we're less likely to continue that behavior in the future. So that's why praise will have been looked at. Obviously, maybe if you're training a dog, you want to praise it. It's a good boy, well done. Or give it a little treat. Similar in schools, obviously not really patronising like that, but you might get praise points or rewards at school. And that's to try and increase your efforts. When we see good things at school, we want you to do more good things. And so that's why praises are given. There could be an impact there on self-esteem. So the more you're praised, the more higher self-esteem you're going to have. You're going to hold yourself in higher regard. I'll talk about self-efficacy in a moment. But what has been found is that praise needs to be honest, sincere, and deserved. So if you're just getting praise for everything you do, for just breathing, you're not going to believe it. You're going to think, oh, okay, well, I get praise for everything anyway. So actually, the best praise is praise which, so kind of little and often sometimes actually works better, because you need to work for that praise. When it's honest as well, you know if you've deserved an award, a reward or not, and if you've been given praise when you haven't deserved it, it doesn't mean anything to you. So praise is better when it's honest, sincere, and well deserved. And actually, performance effort should be praised, not necessarily outcome. So if you're saying to someone, oh, this is an amazing bit of art you've done, or amazing bit of music, but that person has always done really well in those subjects, actually the process, saying, okay, you must have worked really hard to have this outcome, that's a better praise than actually praising the outcome. You can't necessarily control the outcome, but you can control the process that you put in to get that outcome. So it's more controllable. It doesn't matter what level you're at, you can always put in effort, you can always put in performance. And so that's why it's better to praise performance than it is outcome. And that can be in academics, in sport, in whatever area you look at, in music, art. You're better praising the process. Everyone can control that process, everyone can get better, and that obviously then links back a bit back to having a growth mindset and saying, okay, we can move better, we'll react better to that failure if there is some. There's also a link to something called self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is how you judge yourself in a particular area, in a particular domain. So if you feel that you're good at that area, you're going to have high self-efficacy there. And we get our self-efficacy from past experience. So something that you haven't tried before, you may think, oh, I'm not going to be very good at this because you haven't got any experience there. So it's good to try new things so we can see how we are in that. And then how we experience those things will then, you will get a feeling of how good you are at whatever it is, art, I don't know, tiddlywinks, drama, whatever it may be. You will have some self-efficacy. You can, when you do well in that, so being given chances to perform well within, whether you're a beginner, whether you're intermediate, whether you're an expert, being given a chance to perform well and have a good outcome is really important to our self-efficacy. So you can raise someone's self-efficacy by structuring the level that they do that thing at and raising that to try to get them better. The other side is true as well. So if we experience failure after failure after failure, our self-efficacy is going to go down and we're going to view ourselves as not very good at that. And actually what other people say, so whether it's coaches, teachers, peers, siblings, parents, they can have an impact on our self-efficacy as well. So if you're always told that you're good at something, you're going to think you're good at something. If you're always told you're bad at something, you're going to think you're bad at it. And that's what self-efficacy looks at. Our self-efficacy, the reason this links to kind of praise and Dweck, is that it has an impact on our motivation. So if we have high self-efficacy, we're more likely to do things. It's actually a bit of a vicious cycle, because if you've got high self-efficacy, you're more likely to do things. If you're more likely to do things, you're more likely to get better at it. And so your self-efficacy rises. So it kind of goes in cycles. And the difficult thing is trying to, put more effort in, time and effort into something that you don't think you're very good at. Ironically, that will actually improve you at it, but you're less likely to try to do it. So there's an interesting kind of cycle going on there of praise or not, and how much effort you'll put into something. Okay, so that kind of looks at the AO1 of what praise and self-efficacy is. We can evaluate that like we did with Dweck. So looking at, is there support or not for these ideas of praise and self-efficacy and where they can be used. So one evaluation, one AO3 point, and I've said it before already, but actually praise isn't always a good thing. It's a bit of a strange thing to say, but actually praise can have the opposite effect. So I mentioned this before, where actually praise can sometimes lead to a lack of motivation, because are you going to do that thing? If you're only ever doing it because you're praised for doing it, what happens then when the praise isn't there? So we need to have something that's known as intrinsic or internal motivation rather than extrinsic, external. So praise is an external motivator. We want you to be able to do something. You should be able to do something because you want to do it. And so what that means is extrinsic rewards can destroy our internal motivation. But going back to Dweck, actually, again, as long as you know about it, you can use it to your advantage. So what Dweck has said is that praise and how we use praise can have good outcomes, and we can use those in the real world as well. So Dweck conducted studies where people were given feedback, and actually they were given feedback on effort and working harder, and so what they found was that those who were told to put more effort in, to work harder, their outcomes were better than those who were just told, oh, you're really good, you're really good, you're really good, you're really good. Because if you're told you're really good, you can think, well, I don't need to do anything. So actually, it needs to be a balance between actually being told and having that motivation to work harder, as opposed to just praise all the time. And so actually types of feedback is important, and they can have a positive impact. And this would be predicted by the mindsets theory. And finally then, looking at the idea of self-efficacy. So do we do things where we perceive ourselves to be good at it or not, and how does that have an impact? So there's a strength of this theory, and that is that there has been research that supports self-efficacy having an impact on outcomes, and actually this bit of research found that those with a low self-efficacy ended up having poor performance. The reason that this is a strength is because that would support the theory. So the theory is backed up by this idea and this research that has found that. So what the research did, they looked at false negative stereotypes. So there's a negative stereotype in America that African Americans don't perform well on IQ tests and women don't perform well on maths. Not true, but that could be a negative stereotype. And so what the researchers did, they got there was a group of African Americans, there was a group of women, and they split each of them in half, and one half they told them what they were doing. So they told half of the African Americans, you're doing an IQ test. They told half of the women, you're doing a maths test. The other halves, they didn't tell them, but gave them the same tests. And what they found was the ones that were told what tests they were doing, they performed worse than the ones that didn't know what tests they were doing. And the researchers concluded that this was because they had this negative self-efficacy. They had this pre-perception that they weren't going to perform well on it because that's what those stereotypes would suggest. And so the reason that bit of research actually backs up this theory is because it shows that self-efficacy can have an effect on motivation and performance, and so the theory has some support, even though that's obviously quite a negative study in terms of the stereotypes. I hope that was helpful, and so covers kind of Dweck, covers praise, evaluations of each, and then there's one last video to look at in terms of looking at learning styles. Hope you found it helpful. Thanks for listening.